Yeah.
See the start
Yeah.
video.
Uh-huh.
Victoria, can you hear me? Hello? Victoria? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm here.
Great. I just want to be ready for when Connie joins so I can transfer it to her. So she
Oh,
can
I
host.
understand. Yeah, I
And
haven't seen her yet.
The recording button's working, so that's good.
Oh, there it is. Okay, got it.
I just lost Sergeant Chris. Oh,
You just lost Sergeant Chris?
and I see him.
I don't see him on mine.
Kim, this is Caleb. I have a question. Do we use the same Zoom invite as is on the website, or is there a different one?
It's the same.
Okay.
It should be the same as the one on the website.
Okay, thank you.
You mean on the agenda? Or both?
Oh, I didn't look on the agenda. That's you know, that's where I go wrong every time I don't look on the agenda, right?
No, and this should be the right one that is on here now.
There's Sergeant Chris.
If it feels right, it must be right.
There's
Steve.
Connie.
Is she there?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Tried to unmute her.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Connie, do you want me to transfer you to be host?
Yeah, I think that's easiest.
Yeah. I just have to always remember how.
Get them up to my name and more.
And
Your name.
recording.
Make host.
Yep.
And we just have to make sure we're recording. Mine shows that we are.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Maybe wait another minute and just make sure everybody has a chance to log in. All right, Kim, I don't know where it records to. I hope it's recording on your cloud.
It is. We see it. We started it recording. I think maybe that was the issue last time.
Okay, that'll make it easier. Okay, well, let's see here. I think we have, oh, we're still missing a couple board members, I think, so maybe we'll wait another minute. Keep trying to, I downloaded a picture of a flag, but I did it on the wrong computer. Let me see if I can get a flag. I'm waiting.
Got one. Yeah. There we go.
That'll work.
Okay.
All right, yeah, we can go with that. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we have everybody. We'll just wait for Victoria to come back and then we'll get started. Are you ready? Oh, there she is. Sorry. Dolores, are you ready to go?
Almost, Connie. Victoria's
Okay,
getting.
take your time.
Connie,
Yep.
well, before we get started, I have to break away at 7 o'clock if we're still on for about 10 minutes.
Okay. No problem.
Thanks for the flag, Trustee Browning. Mayor Sullivan, the clerk is ready.
Okay. 1 second here.
Why not here?
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the special meeting of the Lions Board of Trustees for Monday, March 30th, 2020. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mayor Sullivan.
Did you hear me? Sorry.
Okay. Trustee Browning,
Present.
Trustee Miller,
Present.
Trustee Carabas,
Present.
Trustee Drystat,
Present?
Trustee Farrell,
Present.
Trustee Roberts.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll take a brief reflective moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Wait, you can't do both, can you?
Second.
I did the first one, I thought.
I believe for remote meetings, every vote must be done by a roll call vote. So I'll ask the clerk to call roll call vote for approval of the agenda, please.
Trustee Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Caravas,
Aye.
Trustee Drystat,
Aye.
Trustee Farrell,
Aye.
Trustee Roberts,
Aye.
Mayor Sullivan.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right. So the first item on our agenda is just to do a quick update from everybody on the COVID-19 task force. Since we last met, the state issued a stay-at-home order. We kind of knew it was coming from the county when we had our last call. And since then, the county issued one, and then the state issued one. So the county rescinded theirs. So I believe we're now under the state's order. Keeping that straight? Okay. I did make some notes about that order just to summarize it in case some haven't had a chance to go through it. And essentially, it restricts all traveling unless it's for necessary activities, and then it defines those activities. And it also defines what a critical business is and what minimum basic operations are. And so I'm not going to go through all of them, but it did, I kind of outlined in more detail certain activities that were allowed, and it talked about park closures. So I think for the most part, we're fairly consistent with this order once we close the basketball courts and the playgrounds, which I believe staff already had done after the county order. Several businesses are allowed to continue to operate. It does talk about, in addition to the obvious grocery stores and pharmacies and food type businesses, restaurants and bars can continue to do takeout. It does also say hotels and places of accommodation are allowed to continue to operate, including plant and food cultivation, farming, food processing and manufacturing, etc. And then any manufacturing necessary to support a critical business. And then it does have critical retail as well. I did have some questions about making sure we were interpreting the marijuana provisions of this accurately. So I might, in a second, ask Brandon, or Attorney Dittman, to clarify. Hardware stores and building material stores are still allowed, and any establishment really that is engaged in retail food, sale of food or other household consumer products. So it is allowed for gas stations and convenience stores to continue. So there are still a number of businesses and lines that will hopefully be able to continue to operate even with this stay-at-home order in place. Automobile rental, auto supply, and auto repair may continue. And then it does allow houses of worship to remain open. However, they're encouraged to implement electronic platforms for services or to conduct congregations or keep their congregations smaller to 10 or fewer people. Those are the main ones that I thought applied to Lions. I don't know if the town administrator or the attorney wanted to offer any other things they drew from that, just that we would want to clarify for anyone.
I think for the most part,
I think
go ahead, Brandon.
I think a general comment that I've learned from the other county attorneys and city attorneys and town attorneys in enforcing this order is that, you know, just because you do one piece of what is considered an essential or critical activity doesn't mean that extends your entire business necessarily. For example, if, you know, you're a shop that just happens to sell lotion, that doesn't mean your whole store is a lotion store and is therefore covered as an essential business. So the general consensus is whatever those critical things are that are permitted, you have to be at least 51% of your store or business be devoted to those things. And if it's not, you are not an essential business. And I at least know, I don't know about Boulder County, but other counties are sending out notices to businesses that are not essential in order for them to shut down if they so determine they're not. So just a heads up, to just give you one tiny piece of what is considered essential doesn't mean that extends your entire business. It has to be it's a culmination of things you do that makes you essential.
Okay, and then for marijuana dispensary, it's for the sale of medical marijuana or curbside delivery pursuant to the executive order D 2020-011. So are they allowed to continue to sell recreational as long as it's curbside? Is that how,
That's correct.
how I interpreted that? And then medical, can people still come in, or do those also have to be curbside?
I think you can do both is what I've understood this order. And there's also delivery for medical, I believe. But for recreational, it's simply for curbside pickup at this point.
Okay, I am getting calls from a couple of people about the delivery aspect. So delivery of marijuana is there any kind of delivery restriction on that? Is that courier or?
Yeah, I honestly, this is still being worked out amongst a lot of people. My understanding is only medical can be delivered, and most of what I understand people would like to be delivered is recreational.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
And you have, I believe, and I have to check the executive orders on this, but previously you had to pass local. It was up to the county, I think, to pass regulations on this. It's still being worked out, though. That's one of those new issues that's just really come to the forefront because of this crisis.
Okay, because I'm being asked, are we going to take any action on that? And it's just not clear to me what we would have to do exactly.
It's something certainly you can research for the next meeting, but you know, I've not studied this in detail yet to be able to make a determination as to what we'd have to do or what if we could do anything to make this happen in Lyons. And it would only be for medical, just to be clear. It'll also have been permitted at this point.
Okay. Any questions about the state order? Trustee Farrell? You're on mute still.
Okay. I was looking into a couple of things related to our parks and open space as well as our lodging with opportunities with A Lodge and WeCasa. So I'm not sure if you want me to bring these things up now, or would you prefer I bring them up throughout the agenda or trustee reports, some of the concerns I have around those two subjects?
I would say, and Attorney Dibbin, you can tell me if I'm right, I think maybe under when we talk about our order later in the agenda.
Okay.
I think,
Yeah, I think it's up to your discussion. It can happen at any time.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to clarify questions now, we could do that and then decide later if we needed to make changes.
It's not necessarily for me to clarify. It's actually for me to bring up the subjects of those two elements and perhaps discuss them a little bit further.
I think we can do it now if you want. And go ahead.
Okay. So one of them was specific to lodging, for example. And I do believe that in my conversations with the folks at WeCasa, that they are very interested in providing opportunities for people to self-isolate. And they actually have an example of somebody there right now that is doing that within our town, that wanted to be able to be separate. I was thinking about it from if we have any healthcare workers in our towns that are very reluctant at really wanting to go home to their families and exposing them, that perhaps that's an opportunity. And then I think that it would be something that would be good for A Lodge to provide. I know that they are working, they're doing that and offering that in Boulder. Their Boulder Lodge, I'm not sure if they call themselves a hotel, but and I do see that that's an opportunity that we could have here, and I would really like to see that we as a town can approve that so that those two opportunities for helping people out is available.
I mean, my understanding is that, do we need to take further action to allow that to happen? I was under the impression they were okay to do that now.
I got the impression at the last meeting that they really wanted to hear from the administrator that it was okay. And I just felt like maybe that would be a good little email to dot the I's and cross the T's and just basically say, you maybe give us a quick summary of what you're offering, and that sounds great, let's do it.
Okay, so they want additional reassurances.
I think it would help.
Okay.
Just making sure we're all clear and on the same page.
Attorney
Yeah,
Dittman.
our recent health order does not restrict the use of those properties for those purposes. The only potential restriction would be for how long the occupancy is, and that wouldn't be based on anything we've done, but just the uses under the town code that they're permitted for. But as people have inquired about that, I know the town's already been working with at least one of those companies on maybe doing a temporary modification to allow longer term uses. So there's nothing really prohibiting it unless there's a really significant lengthy stay, which would be in violation of the hotel motel use of the property or the PUD. In those cases, we can enact a kind of temporary use authorization due to the emergency. And so that's available, but those people should ask the town for that, and we can provide that in writing.
So what if I'm sorry, go ahead, Victoria.
I would like, if they want an exception, then they just need to, an email is fine. Write me a request of what they're wanting to do and for how long and for how many units, and I can respond to that. So we have it in writing back and forth.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing that I think that we should probably start considering a little bit, it's our parks. So I drove around quite a bit over the weekend to kind of see how things were, and then I walked around town as well. And my impression is that people that live here are absolutely honoring the system of social distancing, and I was really pleased and impressed with that. I did see kids at the skate park, and I did see somebody inside the basketball court, so I don't know if that's locked or not. It was a single person, it was not a group of people, but nonetheless, it's supposed to be closed. But my concern is people coming in and visiting. And what I observed at the trails, and granted, I know that the Hall Ranch, Antelope, and Rock Garden are Boulder open space, but I'm concerned because they were packed. And Picture Rock was closed because the trails were wet still. And so when I happened to talk to it's the public open space officer, and he was really upset that it was as packed as it was, but at the same time did not want to make it stressful for people by citing them, because it's $150 to $300. And so right now that didn't seem reasonable to him, and it's a matter of education. But people are parking on the streets, and people were parking in the neighborhood over on, Park Street? I could have that name, Prospect. And I spoke to residents there, and, it's not a problem right now, but they're starting to feel a little concerned about it. And the governor said today, very specifically, he felt that the stay at home meant that this is not a vacation. Trails will be there in the future, and that people should really be recreating from their neighborhoods. So I just wanted to bring that up. I am a little concerned about our town. We have not hit our peak. We're still open for infection. The parks are closed, but is that still really enough for our community?
So, I mean, the next step would be to closing the parks.
Well, that is one option. I thought that another option, if we really wanted to be the most safe, is even perhaps putting out some kind of a statement. So I actually wrote one down. You know, we love you, but we need our space right now. Please stay home and stay safe. So I really do think that it's something that we maybe should be talking about a little bit further.
I mean, I will say I'm maybe more concerned about the open space trails, and we don't really have ultimate control over that. I did go out to Hall Ranch yesterday just to see what it was like, and went for a short run on the trail. Honestly, I didn't feel like it was overly crowded. I went a little later in the day; it was about 3 o'clock. What I was a little more concerned about was that mountain bikers maybe aren't quite used to sharing the trail with as many pedestrians as were out. And they were still riding very aggressively, very fast, faster than I thought was safe for the number of people out on the trails. I mean, I think there could be some possible solutions that we could present to Boulder County. I still think potentially closing the parking lots at the trailheads, like we've done with our parks, would be a great move to deter people from traveling from community to community, which is, I think, what you're getting at, which I agree, that is a concern of mine as well, is that we don't want people going from one community to the other. To the extent we can prevent that, and closing the parking lots would be a deterrent for that. There's always going to be people then that do what they've done up in the ski areas, which then they're parking everywhere else. And so you're going to manage, then you have to have a parking management plan, which I think we may need anyway at some point, even if we just allow people to enter our parks. So if they're open at all, I think a parking management plan will eventually be needed as the weather gets nicer. I'm wondering if Boulder County, we could present some options to them. Maybe they need to designate some trails bike only, some trails pedestrian only, as an interim step, so that we don't have safety issues. I feel like people aren't necessarily being as courteous or as safety conscious as maybe they could be. I still see people biking with ear pods on. You know, things like that are just kind of common sense. You need to be more alert because the trails are more crowded. And I'm not seeing some of those things. So I'm wondering if just some interim rules in this time frame, we could certainly suggest to Boulder and see if they would consider that. Those were just my thoughts. You know, and I wasn't there. Maybe early in the day it could have been even more crowded, I'm sure, but.
Well, one of the comments from the POS officer was basically the mornings are pretty calm. People are home, they're sleeping in, and so the afternoons are definitely where he's seeing more of the problems. And you know, I've also been looking in what would a parking type pass look like for our town if we needed to go there as well as the weather continues to get warmer, to protecting our residents, because we're going to see an uptick in visitors really, really soon.
Sergeant Chris, did you get any feedback from your officers from the weekend at all?
I did. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So parks were a little bit busy, but not packed. The time frame was a factor. A lot of times when I went around over the weekend, there was minimal to zero, but that was probably early morning, 9 to 11-ish. Laverne Johnson being a little bit more popular than Bond. What we saw mostly was just folks going through the park, mostly families, dogs, owners walking dogs, things like that. So just to address some of the issues that was brought up by Trustee Farrell, that Boulder Sheriff's Office has put out extra people on the weekends specifically for the parks and open space trails and stuff throughout the county. So I'm trying to have them hit through lines as well. And the report back from them was it was busy and the parks were not like over capacity as was reported the following weekend, but they were busy and everyone seemed to be doing the best they could to conform to the social distancing and whatnot. We didn't get any problems. There was no problems there, and there was no calls for service or general complaints. The only complaint we actually had on Saturday in Lyons was we did have a trespasser up on the closed portion of Picture Rock, and our parks and open space. I went up there and dealt with that. But the director from the sheriff right now with enforcing the statewide stay-at-home policy is just that. Right now, we're still continuing to provide warnings and education. It's one of those double-edged swords because everyone's supposed to stay home, but go out and recreate and do what you can. And there's a lot of ambiguity, obviously, in an order like that, and a lot of hardship for control. But that's what we noticed over the weekend, anyways. I didn't see it as a big problem. However, it also wasn't 75 degrees out. It was a little bit cool one day. Sunday a little bit better, but I agree with Trustee Farrell that this could definitely become an issue with following the national standard with Trump saying that we're going to close down until the end of April. I mean, this is really pushing into our early springtime, and I agree that we're going to have to talk about it and maybe find some type of solution to spearhead in the very near future.
One of the thoughts that I have is that perhaps what I can do is put together some kind of a tier of options. And then we can discuss that Monday next week, if necessary.
Well, do we want to involve any of our boards and commissions with that guidance, or do you?
That would be ideal.
Staff we're talking about it as well, and we were going to present some options for parking at our next meeting if that's what the board wanted to do as well.
I'm good with that.
It might be good for us to reach out to Boulder County Open Space and just kind of understand where they're at and what their plans are if things get unmanageable on the trails. What would trigger them to take additional action?
Okay.
Okay. Before we go to some of our other folks, did any of the other board members have any observations or things they wanted to bring up? It was a pretty quiet weekend, at least from what I could tell. Town was pretty slow. Seems like people are doing their best to stay home, which is good. That's what we need. All right. Sergeant Chris, do you want to go ahead and do you have any other report you wanted to offer?
Sure. I've got a few things, not a whole lot. My first agenda on my list was the parks, so I've already talked about that. We are still currently, the sheriff's office is still currently at a tier 3. There really has been no change from last week. Our staffing is good. We have moved our SROs into some night shift and other shifts to help augment some street coverage since the schools are now down. The sheriff ordered out, along with the DA's office, a new arrest standard protocol for us. Again, kind of like what I said last week, we're still out here, we're still doing our job, but we are putting limits on certain things that we're responding to, certain people that we're going to bring in the jail. If at all possible, we can do book and release type stuff on scene, summons people in the court. Of course, anybody that needs to go to jail will go to jail, but there is a new set of arrest standards. For example, we were in contact with a gentleman this past weekend that he had just a misdemeanor warrant out of county, traffic related. He's not going to go to jail. Normally that's you shall arrest because of a warrant, but right now in today's world, it's not. So we're just advising those people that they have that information or they have that status and they need to move on. So just things like that, just to keep you guys up to date on. I had some deputies out on bikes this weekend as well, especially with the parks. Both of my day shift guys climbed on the electric bikes and were out and about. It makes it real easy for them to get from park to park and really monitor and mingle in with the folks and keep their 6-foot distance, of course. The other thing I want to touch base real quick on that is becoming a hot topic is reports of police officers pulling people over to enforce the stay-at-home policy. I can say 100% unequivocally that the Boulder County Sheriff's Office nor anybody in this county is doing that. That is not a directive. That is not an order, and nor is it flat out legal at this point. We're not on martial law or anything like that. If somebody's getting pulled over, it's for a reason, and it's going to be for a good reason. Going back to the standards that we enacted where, we're not pulling over minor violations. We're trying to limit that contact with people. So I just want to make sure that everybody that's hearing and viewing this podcast and stuff, that if you're getting pulled over, it's for something. It's not to check to see where you're going. It's not to check to see if you have paperwork saying you're an employee of an essential business. That's not constitutional, and we can't do that. So I just wanted to make that exception perfectly clear to everybody. Also, I got word today that Boulder County has asked sort of and required sort of that all special events and everything like that that normally comes in through the county, that's going to be postponed and suspended until May 15th. So we are not looking at any kind of triathlons, bike races, runs, or anything like that throughout the county until May 15th, where they can reapply and move those events to different days. So I see that once this is over, the second half of our year is going to get really busy really fast. So I don't know if I'm looking forward to that, but the overtime will be nice, but there's going to be people looking for every available day and time to get their events in. So that order came down today. That's all I have in general for work.
Okay. Any questions for Sergeant Chris?
Mayor,
Oh, go ahead.
if you'd like me to give the latest statistics for the county before we go into local issues, I can do that.
Yeah, and then I did want to give a quick update on the call I had with Representative Nagoose yesterday as well. But go ahead and do that.
Okay. As of today, there are this is Colorado statewide, 2,627 known cases. Of those, 414 are hospitalized in 47 counties. We have had over 15,000 people tested now. 14 outbreaks at residential and non-hospital healthcare facilities. That's the number that is very concerning to much of the public health system. So 14 facilities now have an outbreak. We have had 51 deaths statewide as of today. Boulder County has 100 active cases, or 100 cases. The good news about that from our last meeting is last week we were in the county, we were the 5th most cases in the state, the county with the 5th most cases. This week we are the 10th. So we've dropped down in number of cases statewide. However, we have had 1 death in Boulder County to date. And I know there's lots of speculation about people in town. As of right now, I'm not aware of any confirmed cases in the town of Lyons.
Okay.
There may be people self-isolating, of course, but out of precaution, but we have not had any reported.
Yeah, I just would encourage people not to be overly confident and thinking there aren't cases here, because there's still widespread testing is still a ways off. It's hopefully going to improve, but even if they begin testing an additional 50,000 people a day, that's a drop in the bucket to what we would really need to lift our social distancing. I did have I do several calls throughout the week with the town administrator, with both the mayor of Denver, the governor, our senators, and Representative Neguse. Representative Neguse held a really informative call yesterday about the kind of what was in the stimulus package, the $2 trillion package that was passed several days ago, can't remember which day. And kind of the unfortunate thing about the money for government operations is that it's limited to counties with over 500,000 residents. And we only have 2 or 3 of those in Colorado total. And so because Colorado doesn't have huge population centers, we're not going to get a lot of benefit from that package for local government operations. So that's just something to be aware of. There are a lot of questions about the, how the payments will work to individuals. Those are fairly straightforward. They're income based and they're automatic. And so for individuals, they stress that you don't have to do anything. If you qualify for those payments, you will get those payments automatically. It will take longer if you don't do electronic deposit. If the IRS already has your bank account information, those will just get deposited into your bank account, and it'll take maybe, I think, several weeks is their estimate. If you do a paper check through the mail, it could take several months. And so they're working out more of the details on that. Some of the loan deferral things you do have to apply for. Those are not automatic. So they just wanted to stress that if you're looking for, college loan deferrals or other types of loan deferrals that were eligible in that package, that you do need to reach out to your lender and go through an application process. And then finally, there were a lot of questions about the SBA loans programs and how those will work, and information comes out daily on those. So I don't know if Erin's on the call today from the chamber, but I saw some new information today that I haven't had a chance to look at yet. So, but I am hearing that that's a fairly generous program, and the intent of it is primarily to keep people employed. And so from the little that I understand yet, and while we don't have all the details totally, it does sound like that could be some significant relief for our local businesses. So I would just encourage the local businesses, if anybody's listening, and I'm sure Erin will be passing on this information and really encouraging. Sorry, call interrupt. That'll definitely be something we'll want people to look into and try to take advantage of, because a good portion of that might be forgivable. And it's a pretty generous cap. I think 2.5 times your average payroll from last year is what it's based on. So even if you grew significantly this year compared to what you did last year, you should be able to borrow a good chunk of that and maybe not have to pay it back. So more on that to come. All right. How about, let's see, Chief Hoffman? Is he on the phone?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Okay, great. Thank you. You want to give us an update?
Sure. So I'd just like to go back about Trustee Farrell's concerns. I have the same concerns. I've had a lot of conversations over the last several days with people, and I don't think people really understand the impact to this. I'm not sure what they're not understanding with stay at home. So I went out and saw tons of people out in the parks, out, enjoying the sun. Obviously Sunday was a little bit warmer, so there was more people out, people all over the highways. And I don't think what people realize with this is if they get hurt up on Hall Ranch and wreck their mountain bike like we run all summer, it's now creating a call for us that we have to go out and deal with this person. There was a call the other day in the county that happened with Rocky Mountain Rescue, and it tied up several first responders. They all had to don PPE. And so this is just a really good concern. We don't have the PPE that we need to just keep running call after call after call. So the more that people go out and recreate, the higher potential it is for us to run and call. We have to treat every person now possibly like they have it, or that we may have it and give it to them. So that means we have to don a mask, we have to don gloves, we have to wear glasses, even though it could be a bicycle accident or an auto accident or whatever. We're now forced to go through more PPE than we would normally. So, I've got a really big concern with it. People, I get it. People want to go out and recreate and do everything, but I think for the most part, like Mayor Sullivan said, or somebody in the beginning, I think most people in Lyons are doing a good job of it. It's from the people from the other communities that are coming, and if we get an accident, we still have to respond. I've got a big concern with it because we're also seeing, in the county, we update our chief's status every day on a daily run board and throughout the county, so we can all see what our mutual aid partners are doing and where their status levels are. And there's a lot of firefighters and first responders that are out right now, either tested positive with COVID-19 or on home isolation. And we have some right now within Lyons in our department that are out. So that's a concern because our staffing numbers are dropping. And we also, as I told you all a few weeks ago, we have limited the number of personnel at our station just so we cut back on the potential exposure from people. So again, we don't want to expose the public, so we have to take safety precautions. We may go to a typical auto accident and somebody may not have it, but we may have it not knowing, being asymptomatic, and now we've spread it to somebody else. So I don't know, whatever we can do as a community, I'm on board with it. I think that people don't really think about that. And even during normal times, nobody that's up in the rock garden, up in Hall Ranch or running thinks they're going to wreck their bike, and nobody wants to, but they do. We run calls all the time in the summer. We run people that sprain their ankle. We run people that, fall and pass out, whatever. I mean, there's a million things that we run calls up on this open space for. And again, now, it's just putting us all at that greater risk level and tying up resources that we really don't have. I'm listening to, there's a lot of things going on throughout the news media and social media, and some people are saying that, the worst is yet to come. And maybe 2 weeks more, we're going to see our peak. I don't know if that's true or not true. I'm going on, okay, let's pretend it is. And we haven't really seen that wave hit us yet. So, I have concerns. I have concerns for my personnel. I have concerns for the public. And, that the more people are out doing this type of thing, the more prone to accidents, the higher risk to accidents there's going to be. So I don't know how to get that message out any clearer. I mean, it says stay at home and people just aren't doing it. And I think there's other activities that people could come up with. And that's my opinion, and I want to be honest, it has me concerned because, again, it's putting my personnel at risk, and we're already down in numbers right now. So just want to get that out there. A couple other things I did talk to. Barney sent me the information from the local clinic that he reached out to, and I haven't talked to him yet, but I will tomorrow. And I'm going to see if we could possibly use that if we need to and tie that in with the county. I'll talk to Mike Chard with OEM and see how we can maybe work out a contract with that building if we ever did need it. It's just a good resource to have, especially if it's sitting vacant. And other than that, I think Mayor Sullivan again said something, we're not sure how many people, or Victoria did, how many people in Lyons have it. We don't know that. We're trying to get follow-up. We've run the last 3 medical calls we've run have all been suspect to. So we're trying to get follow-up from the health department and or our ambulance providers that we get information back. Of course, there's some HIPAA rules and things like that we have to be careful with, but we don't know if we transport a patient, if they test positive or not. So we as fire departments in the county are trying to push that through to the health department a little more and to our physician advisors saying, hey, look, we need some feedback just so we know if our crews were exposed or if this person is potentially positive, who else was also in the room at the time that could have been exposed to them, or family members or whatever. So we're working on that at the chief's level through the county. And then we've got some things set up through both counties where we can now get testing done for first responders. We have a hotel that we can go to if we need to quarantine for some of our firefighters. So we're all taking it, day by day, just like everybody else. But obviously, a little concerned with PPE shortages and things like that as calls keep coming in. So, but so far we're still fine. We're able to respond to calls. Like I said, a couple weeks ago, there was a countywide status that all the fire departments daily check into and put their staffing levels up. So that's kind of an update from where we're at.
Thank you for that. Just a quick question. Are you guys getting any information yet on the rapid COVID-19 test that gives you more immediate results so you could potentially even test someone before you go into a home?
So there's kind of a mixed messages on that we're hearing. So there is a test that we have available for us, but the question is how fast can we get those test results? We originally were told we should be able to get them within 45 minutes, and then the story changed to 24 hours to 48 hours. So as far as testing people, I've heard and I've seen a lot of things, but nothing concrete as of yet.
Okay. All right. Other questions for Chief Hoffman? I'm going to say something that's probably going to get me in a lot of trouble, but when I was out on the trails, I will tell you that the level of courtesy in space was inversely proportional to age. It was very much the younger people who were not being as courteous and backing off the trail. And, I felt like if you look like you were maybe 40 or over, you were really considerate. And the younger people just seemed to think, oh, this is stupid, and, kind of looked at you like if you slowed down and waited for them to maybe step off the trail. So I do think we still have some work to do to convince younger folks that this is serious, and I was kind of discouraged by that myself. All right, if there are no questions for Chief Hoffman, Aaron, are you on the call? Do you want to give an update from the chamber? No, she's here.
She's on the phone.
But I saw her.
That's a different Erin.
Oh, different Aaron, wrong last name. Sorry. How about Kara? Would you like to go next?
Sure. The update is that there is no update. So
okay.
We're good. Still holding tight. Once we get a couple of staff members this week, who are now, homeschoolers, we will start creating our own content. So, following the footsteps of every other library in the world. So far, we've been curating that content, and now we'll be putting our own stamp on that. So stay tuned. But doors closed, no service. Feeling rude, but
I'm sorry.
Slightly younger folks who's trying to take it seriously. So, yeah, that's my update.
Well, thank you. Hang in there. How about Jean from LCF? Here we go.
Hi there. Can everybody hear me? We are in the final stages of a two-prong event for fundraising and for distributing some grants that we hope we can do in the next couple weeks for our small businesses. We're working with TCF, which is our parent fund in Boulder, and their attorneys to work out some wording so that we as a fundraiser can distribute funds to our small businesses. And as all of you know, typically we can only do that to nonprofits. So that's why we have to work with attorneys to get the right wording. and the timing to be able to do this for our small businesses. So we're hoping to get out a fundraiser event probably within a week or two, hopefully within a week, but maybe a week or two, to have our neighbors who are capable and able to help provide funds to our small businesses to be in addition to what LCF is going to be able to fund and another business here in town. So we're excited about that, and it's just taking longer than we thought it would, but we are very excited to be able to get those funds out. I saw that the SBA is doing is able to have applications for funds as well, which those grants are probably going to be much bigger than what LCF can provide. But at the same time, we're excited to be able to do this for our small businesses here in town. We are also presently returning our donations that our sponsors had provided for us for our fun run, which was supposed to take place on May 3rd. We're sorry that we've had to postpone that, just like everything else that's been postponed. But we do want you to know that we are returning all those sponsor checks, because most of those were small business owners and they need their money back. So that's where we are at LCF right now. We're excited. Things are taking longer than we thought they would, but we're looking forward to be able to give out some funds fairly soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions for LCF?
You're welcome.
Kim had an update on the revolving loan fund.
Sure, I thought I'd tie in with Jeannie there. So the revolving loan fund, which is funded by two sources, from USDA funds as well as the Business Recovery Fund from the flood. And right now, working with that committee, they are ready to get 4 checks out to businesses, and they have 3 more kind of in the hopper, so to speak, from talking to Mike Porter, and he's talked to 2 others on top of that. So we're really hopeful that we'll have those checks out probably on Wednesday, April 1st for the first round. And then he wants to do one more kind of push and promotion, probably the first week of April, once we see how much funding is left and what else we can do. And then I'm sure we'll be reaching out too, because I think there'll be more funding coming down from USDA for rural towns like ours.
Great. Did you happen to talk to the reporter that was doing a story on that program?
No, I didn't hear from anybody.
Okay, I didn't know. I did interview with him. I didn't know if he had talked to you already, so I was just going to let him know we are sending out checks shortly.
Great, thank you.
Great. He wanted to know how much activity we had, so I'm just going to shoot him that note in case he can get it in the story. That's great. All right. Did I miss anybody else who had an update for the board? I don't see Aaron. Any other final questions or anything else before we move on? Okay. Would the clerk please read the items in consent into the record, please?
Yes, consent agenda, item 1, resolution 2020-53, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a construction agreement for project 2020-53 RDWY-FR-01 roadway repairs flood recovery project with Asphalt Specialties. Number 2 is resolution 2020-54, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving an employment contract agreement between the Town of Lyons and Victoria Simonson. Number 3 is resolution 2020-55, A resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the use of electronic consent for signatures on ordinances, resolutions, contracts, and other instruments requiring the town's signature. Number 4 is Resolution 2020-56. A resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, ratifying a license with the Highland Ditch Company for the bank restoration project.
I'm busy muting everybody else. I'm on mute. Would anyone like to pull any items from consent? Trustee Browning, then Trustee Farrell.
Item 2, the contract.
Okay.
And for me, it's item 1. For the roadway repairs.
Okay, is there anybody else? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the remaining items on consent?
I move to approve remaining items on consent.
Second the
I'll
motion.
second that.
Trustee Roberts gets the second. Would you please call the roll for voting?
Trustee Browning?
Aye.
Trustee Miller? Trustee Caravas?
Aye.
Trustee Drystat?
Aye.
Trustee Farrell?
Aye.
Trustee Roberts?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor Sullivan, sorry.
I'll vote. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next item is the ratify ordinance 1080. Could Attorney Dittman just give us a quick overview of the item?
Yeah, so this is the ordinance that we passed at the last meeting concerning open meetings, electronic meetings, and also that one tiny section concerning struggling for the word. What's it called when you? Man, I'm really struggling. When you're not curfew, that's the word I'm looking for. So concerning curfews and electronic meeting policies, the ordinance did not receive 24 hours of notice. So pursuant to our emergency declaration and also the Colorado Open Meetings Law, we're required to go back and ratify that action at the previous meeting. And so at this time, now that everyone's had a full chance to review the ordinance and can think about the issues at hand, you can now, we have to repass it and you can put your thoughts on the record. Then you've had a full chance to review it and talk about it. So that's kind of what we're doing here today, just kind of making sure there's no changes in the thought process. Now that the time and the full ordinance is now before you. And then if it gets ratified, it'll go into effect. It actually already is in effect. It'll remain in effect if it's ratified here tonight. So that is what we're doing.
And just to clarify, this is not a public hearing, correct?
This is not, and this is simply ratification. The public hearing happened at the last meeting. There was public comment on the ordinance.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion to ratify ordinance 1080? Trustee Farrell? You're on mute.
Yep. I move to ratify motion ordinance 1080.
Is there a second? Trustee
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll for votes?
Yes, Trustee Browning? Trustee Miller?
Yay.
Trustee Caravas?
Aye.
Trustee Drystat?
Aye.
Trustee Farrell?
Aye.
Trustee Roberts?
Aye.
and Mayor Sullivan.
Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Thanks. All right. Next on the agenda is just discussion about COVID-19 public health orders. So this is where we wanted to make changes to our emergency declaration orders. They could be proposed at this time. Obviously, we're still under a state order. The only question I had, the state order looks like it ends April 11th, if I'm reading that correctly. And I don't think it's an issue if we have different end dates, correct? I mean, we could leave ours alone. It extends longer, I think.
That's correct. We can also end ours by resolution whenever we need to. So it runs from 8 weeks from its last passage, which I think was the 23rd. But we can always end it sooner or extend it as necessary. And I think it's likely, as you would expect, that the state order will get extended here pretty soon. So I don't think it's a concern at this point.
Right.
And I did hear the governor today say, you know, as he's anticipating it will be extended to match the federal.
Mm-hmm. So otherwise, I mean, understanding the state is going to preempt anything that was not as strict in hours. I didn't feel like there was anything I felt like needed changed, but certainly wanted to hear from trustees.
I'll speak. Only just that I think that we need to, like I was discussing earlier, and then Chief Hoffman kind of reiterating also an agreement that having direction to staff to really look at further restrictions that we might need to do within the town, parks, trails, etc.
Is everybody comfortable with being proactive with potential further actions for parks if needed? Okay. And I would include in that a recommendations for managing on-street parking as we get into the summer months. Okay. All right, great. First item pulled from consent. Oh, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment, following up on earlier discussion, that I think signage, especially, that cajoles people to think twice before they do things, as long as it's reasonably consistent with our directives and the state directives, I think would be, we should feel free to do that.
Great, thanks. Trustee Farrell, consent item number 1.
Yes. I just wanted to ask the question. I noticed that it didn't really mention any of the streets that are going to be repaved and a little bit of detail about what, if this was going to be including the sidewalks, the curbs, the gutters. And so I want to move to approve this with the direction to staff to include that language. But maybe, Victoria, you can give us an update on it or a little more detail.
Sure. Sorry about that. We had that in a previous memo and I should have caught that. Pretty much this involves streets that are south of Railroad. South of Railroad Avenue that were secondarily impacted by the flood, meaning that if they were damaged in the actual flood, they would have been taken care of through a FEMA. But these roads were impacted because all the traffic was diverted over to them, and they've been damaged since over the last 6 years. So these roads include 2nd Avenue from Railroad all the way to McConnell, McConnell Drive from the bridge, south end of the bridge up to 2nd, and that it includes 3rd, 4th, and Evans in on the south side of Main Street. So, and then there's a small portion of 4th Avenue that does go from Main to Broadway that will be, is on the list, as well as a very small section of 3rd that's right in front of Bank of the West from Main to Railroad, or Main to Broadway as well. So I think you've seen this map before. Right now, this only includes pavement, and in some places it's a full reconstruction. Other places it's a mill and overlay, depending on the condition of the road. There is hope that the funds will go far enough to do storm drainage in curb and gutter in areas that currently do not have it. But this bid, we have $100,000 gap between our budget and what they bid. So we are going to have to take a look at all of the different sections and decide where we can make some minor changes to be able to reach that budget. So in some cases, it may mean where we were hoping to do curb and gutter, there won't be, or in some sections, instead of a full reconstruction, it may be a mill and overlay. But until we were able to get the contract initiated with Asphalt Specialties, we can't start those negotiations.
So I have a question then, Attorney Dittman, can I make a motion for that language to be included in terms of the level of detail of the where, without saying this out right now for approval?
Yeah. I think you can make a motion to direct staff to add a whereas clause indicating the locations where paving will be conducted. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
And the mayor will review it before it's signed. So.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask grant staff to that. So.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask the grant staff to draft that language.
Okay. So I move to approve Resolution 2020-53 on the direction that staff include the language under a whereas that about the streets and the pavement in appropriate detail.
There a second?
Second.
Trustee Browning, thanks. Any further discussion? Okay, would the clerk please do a roll call vote?
Yes, Trustee Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Caravas,
Aye.
Trustee Drystat,
Aye.
Trustee Farrell,
Aye.
Trustee Roberts,
Aye.
and Mayor Sullivan.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Next item, Trustee Browning.
Yes, the contract that was attached to the agenda didn't seem to have a couple of the things that we discussed way late in the night, whenever it was the last time we met, last Monday, I suppose it was. So I think the contract, a couple of the details got left out of the contract. In particular, Section 2C, I think we discussed that if the employee is terminated, the employee shall be entitled to all compensation under the contract. No, that was going to be all compensation basically earned through the date of termination, but that language didn't get added.
I think that's my fault. I shared the summary with, I forgot to send that to the town attorney. I went through it with Victoria and didn't forward that. So that's my fault. So if we could just amend that and provide that language. And
I forgot he wasn't there for that part of the.
yeah, he cut out early.
Sorry, I took the draft I was given and kind of cleaned it up. So your change is to be this. I'm looking at this section right now. Entitled to all compensation earned through the point of termination.
Right. And then I think in the last phrase of that same paragraph, it says continuation of all benefits for the remainder of the term of this agreement, which would be 8 years, potentially extended by 2. I think what's probably intended there is continuation of all benefits pursuant to sections 9 and 10, which define what the severance benefits are and that kind of thing. It's not benefits under the contract for the next 8 to 10 years.
That makes sense.
Okay. And then, let me see. Um, and then find the right number. Section 10E. If for 1 year following termination, the towns to continue to pay the costs of health insurance, life insurance, and disability. I think we discussed the town would do that unless the employee took another position with another town. So getting benefits, health insurance, life insurance, whatever from another town, then the town's obligation would cease.
Yeah, we were gonna change that to say for a minimum of 1 year or until new employment is obtained.
All right.
Over until new employment is obtained. Okay.
Yep. And then one more very minor point that I will stipulate in advance will never happen, but it's a contract. You got to cover such things. The next subparagraph was F. If the employee is terminated because of a felony conviction, we talked about adding a quick reference to or a guilty plea. Employees charged with a felony.
Okay. Yeah.
Guilty to the felony.
I left it up for negotiation. I wasn't sure what the resolution of that was, and then I wasn't given any direction on what the resolution of that was. I'll add that right now.
Yeah, with no reference to Victoria whatsoever. Any employee that pleads guilty to a felony, we shouldn't have to keep paying them, just as a general.
And one other minor one in that section E, instead of short-term and long-term, just change that to applicable disability insurance as provided in 4B.
Okay.
I think those were it. They were fairly minor, but yeah, I'm sorry, I should have gotten those over to you.
There were also a number of other changes, like errata changes that Trustee Drysdale pointed out to me that those have all been corrected at this point.
Okay. Any other questions or changes that we didn't catch?
Mayor Sullivan,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
this is, if you would, it feels like it would be worthwhile to give a summary of our thoughts and reasons for the choices we made in this contract, and I don't want to do that. Would you be willing to make a short presentation?
Yeah, actually, I'll kick it off and then I'll ask Attorney Dittman to kind of fill in. So this all began with our auditor at one of our, I think the last town audit, financial audit that we had. One of the action items that was recommended by the auditor was to update the administrator's contract. And that's because it hadn't been updated since the original date of hire. And it was not a very thorough contract. It was a fairly simple agreement. And in that time, CML has proposed some contract templates that they encourage municipalities to use for their employment agreements. And it was a very outdated format, as well as the conditions in the contract. So the town administrator does get an annual review with the Board of Trustees every year. I guess that'd be annual. And this was part of that routine process that we go through. And it is typical that we do it in the first quarter of every year because it's, mostly fair to the town administrator that it's done by a board that has been working with her for some period of time and has the ability to do an assessment, understanding how the staff work and her performance. And we did collect information from both trustees and employees of the town. So it's a 365 review, and that information is synthesized by the board and reviewed with the administrator. We do that in executive session because that's the right of an employee. So Attorney Dittman, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Yeah, sure. I can just add I've worked on a couple of these different town administrators and city managers, and it's quite common to use this template. It's from the International City Managers Association, and it's a standard contract. Anywhere you look in Colorado, you're going to see pretty similar type of contract, including things like severance, because this is political, more position impacted by politics, and so there needs to be some guarantee that the administrator can do his or her job without the interference of politics. And if it is interfered, they're basically entitled to compensation. And so this is a very standard contract, very similar to what you're going to see elsewhere in Colorado. And in fact, in many cases, the severance provisions are much more expensive than what you're going to see in this one. And so we just try to do our best to fit the situation, the circumstances of Lions. And I, played a pretty small part in this, but I would like to comment that it is pretty typical to have this kind of contract for a town administrator, a city manager, or a county manager. And that's kind of what we're doing here today.
The only other thing I would add is we did base the compensation on many comps of communities that we felt were of similar size and function of Lions. And so there was a good deal of research that went into the compensation rate, which hadn't been adjusted in some time. And we felt it was appropriate to do an adjustment for the range. And the board feels very strongly that Administrator Simonson is her experience and her tenure with the town and has demonstrated that she would clearly fall into the higher end of a range in most communities. So we're very pleased to make that adjustment. All right. Is there a motion for the resolution? Trustee Brown?
I would move approval of resolution 20-54, approving the employment contract between the town and Victoria Simonson.
I'll second that.
Lots of seconds. Any further discussion? Trustee Browning?
Just a couple of quick comments about, as you said, we did review the level of compensation, compare it to other similar towns in Colorado. Trying to play similar lines, but we got close and we think it's well within the range of comparable positions elsewhere. I'd also point out that there's some unique elements to the town administrator duty in Lions that probably don't apply elsewhere. We're still recovering from a flood. We're several years away from completing the flood construction contracts, not to mention the post-contract review period by the state and FEMA and everybody else. It's very important to have somebody here who understands where all those flood contracts came from. Along the same line, if you think back, within the last couple of years, we've changed town engineers, we've changed town attorneys, we've changed town clerks. There's been a number of other turnover on town staff, partly because the town of Lions can't afford to pay high enough salaries to attract people who are competing with other front range cities, partly because some of the people we attract salary-wise can't afford to live here. They can't find housing. So there's a very serious shortage of institutional memory on the staff level, on the staff of the town of Lions at the moment. Victoria has been here through the hell of the flood and will now be involved in a budget crisis that we're about to hit very, very soon. And so don't underestimate the value of that institutional memory and knowledge to the town of Lions. And yes, this is a difficult time to be giving any municipal employee a salary increase, but the value to the town of Lions, I think, is exceeded by what the proposed compensation is under the new contract.
Thank you.
Mayor
Farrell, go ahead.
And I'd also like to say that we went through 2 or 3 executive sessions going through discussing Victoria's review and the negotiations of this contract. We didn't rush through this. We took our time, and she was very patient with us because we also went back and asked for some more information from her, from staff, and from HR. And so this was a very thorough process, and I feel very good about this contract. And so I just wanted to make sure that it's understood this is never a rushed process. And frankly, her patience with us is commendable, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think you both said it well. I would say, having worked with Victoria for 8 years, actually. I would say the town is really fortunate to have strong leadership. And, you know, we've been through a lot in this community in the last 6 to 8 years between the flood, and it's hard to run a small business, and that's what the town is. It's a small business that really still has to provide services every other large community does, with less money. And I think that, you know, what I've seen is Tori is very professional and very competent and very well respected by her staff and the community. And I'm glad that we have her in place, especially with all we have going on right now. So the town is in good hands, and I will vote enthusiastically for the contract. All right, any further discussion?
Can I comment?
Please.
Well,
I didn't
first of
know
all,
you wanted to, so I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the board and, of course, the community as well for their trust in my leadership of the internal organization, and you guys, the elected officials, for the guidance and the policy setting that we then have to carry out. So I just want to reassure people that even though this, I know there were some concerns about the length of the contract, I want to reassure people that I'm still an at-will employee. That's statewide. And so if at some point it is not working for either the board, the community, or myself, we can still all end that contract. This is just a way to put the contract into motion and continue it over the coming years. And I'm hoping that we can finally finalize flood recovery this year. That would be just so amazing. And then get through this new bump, which is probably going to be some significant budget adjustments we're going to need to be making. We have a great team of staff on board right now to move us forward, and I am just so excited to get started on some building of affordable housing and the East Corridor. And there's still so much to be done. And I thank you to the board for having trust and faith in me to help us lead us through this next chapter of Lions community moving forward. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your consideration and all the thought and time you took to get through this with me. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, will the clerk please call a roll call vote?
Yes, Trustee Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Caravas,
Aye.
Trustee Drystat,
Aye.
Trustee Farrell,
Aye.
Trustee Roberts,
Aye.
and Mayor Sullivan.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So we are to the executive session. So at this point, we will log off.
Actually,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mayor
Trustee.
Sullivan?
Yes, go ahead.
Actually, one thing that it looks like in the packet we skipped over was the administrator's report. And she had some stuff listed in that. And so, and then I actually had some follow-up I wanted to perhaps pursue if that's still available to us.
It's actually not on the agenda. That's why I skipped it. You're right. It was in the packet and it was a nice report. I assumed it was related to the COVID-19, but there.
I did too. I think that's why I put it there, just because it was going to be a follow-up to the COVID.
Okay, but I think that's okay if you wanted to add a few comments to that before we sign off.
Well, Victoria, was there anything that you wanted to bring up in particular yourself?
Well,
and if not, I can proceed.
No, go ahead if you had a question about it.
Well, it wasn't so much a specific question about your report as much as it was just a thing that I wanted to mention because I know next week could get quite hectic for us. But I just wanted to bring up a conversation that we had with the finance director. If it's all right with you, I'd like to give a summary of
sure.
that.
Sure.
Okay. So basically, I just wanted some folks to know that that we are currently exploring different scenarios to determine how to decrease, if we have a decrease, which we know we will, in sales tax, and how that's going to affect our budget and the plans that we had budgeted for. So I wanted it to be, you all to know that there are two areas where the biggest impact is going to probably be in our general fund as well as our parks fund. And we're looking at a best, middle, and worst case scenario of sales tax decreases. So for example, what would it look like in particular if our revenues are down by 10, 25, 50, or 75%, and that could happen at various points throughout the year. So by going through this exercise, we're going to help the town and the board determine and how we're going to adjust our budgets accordingly. So that's work in progress that I think Jill will be giving us more detail in the April 6th meeting. But I did want to say, that the good news is, because I know this has been a question for some folks, that yes, we do have reserves in all of our funds that's required by Tabor. We may need to dip into those reserves. We are looking at the State of Colorado Municipal League, as well as it's the state and the Colorado Municipal League, and trying to get some questions answered. At what point are we able to dip into Tabor, and can Lions expect to get from the stimulus package? And it's sounding more based on Mayor Sullivan, your conversation, or call with Representative Neguse, that it's not exactly promising. But I just wanted to say that, we are going to continue, as a town, we have to continue the functions and operations of all of our essential services. And so I'm really looking forward to Jill's information. I think she's really going to give us some good guidance.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We did skip over that. And I did want to say that I asked Representative Neguse about additional funding packages and what he thought might be coming next. As you know, Congress did recess and said they wouldn't be back until April 20th, which seems like a really long time considering what we're about to go through. And he did think that there's a decent possibility they may come back sooner than that. And so I think it would be really good to continue to work on what do we think our funding needs will be if our sales tax drops to say half of what it normally is. I do think that, and I'm cautiously optimistic that as we get through April and possibly May, even if the social distancing continued through May, that we probably have some additional ability to have more businesses open over the summer, maybe lightening up on some of the social distancing that's required right now, get back to some sporting events and running, races and things like that bring people to town. I'm not as optimistic about things like festivals where they have really large gatherings until we have either better treatments or a vaccine. And so what I'm hearing people talk about mostly is softening things up over the summer, especially if the virus is maybe less virulent over the summer months with the heat. And also we've kind of worked through the first wave of people who have the infection and then build up some immunity to the infection. So it sounds like we will relax things, but it will probably not be a normal summer is kind of the tone that I'm hearing. And so to the extent that, and I appreciate you working with our finance director on this and preparing for a broader presentation for the whole board on what these scenarios look like. I think the challenge with that is you are having to make some fairly large guesses in the modeling at this stage, because we don't really know yet what the trajectory looks like. I think as we get into April, I think the board will know more, and you can keep updating that. But my sense is we should prepare like what we think the worst case scenario is for the year and what funding challenges would we foresee. But I would also say we should be thinking about what types of other policy recommendations we may want to ask for that could be helpful for towns. So both that could be state level or national level. So if there are things related to FEMA deadlines for projects that need extending, I know I've already communicated that to all of our senators and Representative Neguse, and I thought they did offer something around FEMA extensions, but I need to confirm that. So I think just be thinking, and I think we should fairly quickly by our next meeting probably have a list of our needs that we could see potentially needing to ask the federal government for or the state for. Yeah, Trustee Carvis, and then I think Trustee Farrell had another question.
To your comments about as things hopefully get loosened up sooner rather than later, and vaccines and things, talking to some fellow Greeks that are in the restaurant business, imagine that. Our restaurants not knowing where their margins are, as this say by July 1st, it's, you know, best case scenario, we're all back to going everything's full board going what you want to do. Human nature is there's going to be a lot of us who go sit in restaurants and tables, and someone coughs, sneezes, we're not going to want to be sitting next to that table. There's a good possibility that our restaurants and our seating establishments need to be prepared for a possible 30 to 40% reduction in tables being served, because people, human nature, just aren't going to want to sit there next to people. Same with theaters, which we don't have. And as you mentioned, Mayor Sullivan, this goes into the fall, starts up again. We could be seeing seating capacities a lot lower in lines at our restaurants for a good 24 months, which goes to your planning for the worst case scenario is that's a bad thing. And so doing these things now we need to do, because like I said, some of our, I don't know if our chamber needs to talk to the people. I'm sure the restaurant owners are already aware of this, but if they're not, maybe bring it to their attention. Patrons traveling here may not want to be sitting as close to other people for a while, just till this thing wears off out of our general psyche for months or years. It just depends on the individual. Thank you.
More outdoor seating is what I would suggest right now.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, Trustee Farrell, do you have another comment?
Well, when you said FEMA, it did remind me of one thing. I think that the state senators got together and put together a letter asking FEMA directly about asking for some direction on flood recovery construction and funding deadlines. And so, Victoria, I was curious if FEMA has made any adjustments to delays yet, and how that will impact us. And you know, if this is something you have to answer next week, that's fine. I know that was out there at one point.
We have been told by FEMA that our projects are obligated and there's not a problem that it will be taken away. That's why we are trying really hard to continue on the same trajectory to get everything done this year. Like the mayor said, we've already made them aware that some of these deadlines are pretty tight. If contractors don't continue to work, we will have some problems. But as of right now, we are still planning to move forward and finish our recovery work this year and spend the funds.
Okay.
But it does, you know, it can change with the illness, and depending on how it affects people more locally that are actually doing the construction. But at this point, we are planning to move forward and get this done and not need an extension. They're aware of it if we do.
And so would you say that the contractors right now are generally on schedule then themselves?
Oh yeah, I think most people are happy to be working, and most of our projects are outdoors, and so that makes that easier. And so far we're not seeing anyone who's indicating they can't complete their projects.
Great. Thank you.
The one thing I would say is I think on a positive note, we're not anticipating any reduction in property tax at this time. So I think mostly what we're estimating are forecasts for our sales tax reductions. So we'll know more after April, kind of what our baseline rate of sales tax looks like. All right, so with that, I think, is there a motion to recess for 15 minutes and we'll dial back in on the other number for executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think for a recess, can we just raise our hand? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
You getting the other number? I haven't
Yes,
received-
I'm going to send out that link right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.